Okay. Welcome. This is the initial introductory, well, I guess it's kind of introductory and initial lesson for this series, which I'm calling Spanish Sentence Patterns. Today we'll cover patterns 1 through 9, at least as I have them laid out. They're not all distinct. There's sometimes variances of some major pattern. Um, okay, so this is not basic Spanish grammar. Like this is, I don't know who it's intended for, but it's sentence pattern. So if you want to know Spanish sentence patterns and where direct objects go, where direct object pronouns go, and things like that, this series might be helpful. Okay, so let's start. Sentence pattern number one um, is going to be the subject, which we're just using the subject object pronouns for now because I feel like that's going to help you remember them if you don't already know them. But anytime you can substitute it in a name, like here where we have ella, which is the third person singular, you can substitute in like Maria or Pablo, right? You can substitute somebody's name. And everywhere where you have ellos, right, you could put in somebody's names, people's names, because it's plural. Okay, but for us, we're mostly going to focus on the subject pronoun. Then we have ser. Ser is one of the to be verbs in Spanish. And then after the ser, you can have a noun or you can have an adjective. And this pattern matches English, right? I am a dentist, subject, be verb, noun, or I am tall, subject, verb, adjective. So the Spanish and the English, this sentence pattern is the same, and we basically implemented the same. So yo soy, that's the ser verb for conjugated for yo. Yo soy dentista. I am a dentist. There's the noun. Tú eres estudiante. You are a student, and because it ends with an E, we don't worry about gender. Tú eres estudiante. Ella es profesora. The profesora is gender specific to ella, because ella is female. Profesora must be profesora. Now, profesor, if it was él, it would be él es profesor. Okay, so this is the subject pattern that after the be verb, which is the soy, the eres, and the es, we have a noun. But you could also have an adjective. So nosotros somos altos. Altos, just think of like altitude, which is a height. So this is we are tall. We are tall. Ustedes son amables. Amables is from the root amare, which means to love in Latin. So we have amicable, we have uh, amorous, we have amable, amable. Yeah, yeah. So it's the same. So you guys are kind or friendly. Ellos son guapos. Guapos is common, I think, common knowledge for English speakers or Americans that we use guapos to mean good looking or handsome for men or beautiful for women if it's guapas. So that's it. Sentence pattern one. Subject plus conjugation of ser for the subject, and then add a noun or an adjective. Notice I didn't put any like modifiers. I didn't put yo soy un dentista. I can say un dentista. In English, we cannot say I am dentist, right? We need an article. Yo soy we need to say I am a dentist. And Spanish has that same thing. You can say yo soy un, which is a dentist. But it's also very common, it's even probably even more common not to use it. So, okay, think of it like Russian, right? Russians would say I am dentist, right? Because they don't have articles. Okay, Spanish has articles, but when you give your profession, you don't need to list the article, but you can. And it's very common for people to use the article when they give somebody's profession or when they give their own profession. Yo soy un dentista is very common Spanish, but also yo soy dentista is very common Spanish. Okay, that's pattern number one. Okay, pattern number two, we're doing the same thing, except so notice here with the ser, we're using a noun and an adjective. And the reason why using a noun is because ser is for more permanent kinds of qualities. So if you're a dentist, it's a long-term thing. It's not like you switch being a dentist from day to day. Student, long-term thing. Professor, long-term thing. And look at the adjectives. Tall. You're going to be tall for a long time. Kind. We think that's like a defining quality. It's not like you're kind and not kind, kind and not kind. You're kind in general. And guapos, good looking, same thing is a long-term quality. So that's why it goes with said. But now we go to the estar, the second pattern that I've listed here. Estar is the other be verb in Spanish. And this is for more short-term qualities among other things. So here, it's very common to have an adverb, some kind of adverb. So an adverbial, as we say in English, anything that works like an adverb. So a prepositional phrase can serve as an adjective, sorry, as an adverb. It can also serve as an adjective, but here we're just talking about adverbs. Or you can have an adjective, but it's not going to be the long-lasting kinds of adjectives. It's going to be the short-term kinds of adjectives, and you'll see what we mean here. So, yo estoy aquí. I am here, right? I'm not going to be here forever. This is not a thing that we're not. It would be weird if you say I am here and then you stay there like. So this is like for placement for places we use estar, estoy here. So aquí is here. Tú estás en Perú. There's our prepositional phrase. En Perú is in Peru. And so this is for placement, we use estar. So for location, we use estar. Tú estás en Perú. Ella está con Pablo. Prepositional phrase, so it's an adverbial here. She is with Pablo. She is with Pablo. Okay. Now here's some examples with adjectives. Nosotros estamos aburridos. Aburridos. It kind of looks like if you look at the B-U-R, B-U-R-D, B-U-R-D-O, it's boredom. So aburridos is bored. So think of boredom for aburridos. So nosotros estamos aburridos. And when you're bored, you're not going to be bored for 2 days, 3 days. I mean, yeah, you can suffer that, but generally what we're saying is I'm bored right now, right? At this time, at this moment, I'm bored. So aburridos is short-term quality, relatively speaking. So that's why it goes with the estar verb, right? You wouldn't say yo soy aburrido, right? That has a whole different meaning. Okay. Ustedes están felices. Felices, from I think the Latin felix. Felix, I think, is lucky, but felices is happy. Feliz Navidad, right? Feliz Navidad is like Merry Christmas. So feliz is also merry in that sense. So Feliz Navidad is Merry Christmas. Feliz is happy, merry, like merry, haha, merry. Right. Okay, so ustedes están felices. Adjective after the estar verb. And then ellos están tristes. Tristes is sad, right? This is the French word is also something like, I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't even know the word, but it has the same root of the triste for sadness. So they are sad. Ellos están tristes. Okay, so the first two patterns are basically the same. It's just that usually what comes after the said is a noun or an adjective, and the adjective is a long-lasting quality. And after the estar, it's going to have some kind of adverbial or some kind of short-term quality, again, relatively speaking. Okay, those are the first two patterns. Third pattern, subject, transitive verb. Transitive verb takes a direct object. The object receives the action directly. It affects that object directly. And then we have a direct object noun versus pronoun. So for now, noun, and I put them in blue so we can, I'm color coding this because that's always helped me. Okay, I'm not color coding everything because I feel that like it messes with the eyes, and you're going to kind of see that later, but for now, we'll just keep it, the things that are kind of like, that make them unique. So the subject, transitive verb, direct object pronoun. I have no articles, I have no modifiers in front of these pronouns. I mean, in front of these direct object nouns. I can, but for now, we'll just keep things simple. Yo como, I eat ensaladas. And you see the word salad. Well, you don't see, it's not the word salad, but you see the letters can spell out salad here. So it's salads. I eat salads. Yo como ensaladas. Direct object. This is a very common sentence pattern in English. We have the same sentence pattern for the same uses: subject, transitive verb, and then direct object. In English, but English is slightly different from Spanish, and we'll see later. Okay, another example. Tú comes hamburguesas. Tú comes hamburguesas. Obviously, hamburguesas is hamburgers. So you eat hamburgers. You eat hamburger. So you eat hamburgers. Okay, hamburgers. Hamburguesas. And another example, ella come peras. If you flip-flop the R and the A, you have the word pears in English, and that's what it is. It's pears. Ella come peras. Okay, so easy. So far, it's easy because it's just like English, right? The sentence patterns follow English. English uses them the same way to say the same kinds of things, and the grammar is the same: direct object noun after the transitive verb, subject first, in that order, right? Okay, now we're going to get into some pronouns, which is going to change things. So first, let's cover the pronouns before we get into the sentences. Okay, direct object pronouns. In English, we have one set of object pronouns, and it's the same if you're talking about the direct object, if you're talking about the indirect object, or if you're talking about the object of the preposition. So for example, the object pronoun that corresponds to I is in English is me. She loves me. That's the direct object pronoun. She loves me. But if I use it as an object of the preposition, she bought this for me, or she went to the store with me. Me is still me, but it's the object of the preposition for or the object of the preposition with. Or indirect object, she gave me $1. She gave me. Me is the indirect object in that sentence, but still me, doesn't change. In Spanish, it's going to change depending. Sometimes they match, but mostly it's going to change depending if it's the direct object, the indirect object, or the object of the preposition. Okay, sometimes there's overlap. Sometimes one word will have two uses, but generally it's going to change. So here's the Spanish. The blue is the Spanish. So this one is me, not me. It's Spanish. It's me. The parentheses, there's the English, obviously. So for corresponding to me is me. Corresponding to you, singular, is te. Corresponding to him is lo. Corresponding to her is la. Corresponding to you, polite. In other words, the usted in Spanish, we don't use usted because it's not the direct object pronoun. You have to choose. If you're talking to somebody and that person is a male, then you say lo. That corresponds to usted. And you say la. That corresponds to usted also for feminine. So, okay. Nos corresponds to us. Los and las. You have to take into account the gender here. Same with the third person singular lo, la. Los is you if you're talking to a bunch of guys or a mixed group of guys and girls. Or if you're just talking exclusively to a bunch of girls, which could just be two or more, it's las. And then it's the same word, excuse me, if it's them, los, las. Again, same division, only men or a mixed group of men and women, los. Just two or more women, las, but only women. Okay, these are the direct object pronouns. Now let's look at something again. In this sentence pattern, we had the subject, the transitive verb, and the direct object noun, right? Subject, verb, object, word order, which is common in English. SVO, subject, verb, object. Once the Spanish changes out the noun for the pronoun, the word order changes. The word order becomes subject, direct object, pronoun, and then the transitive verb. So then it becomes an SOV word pattern. So that doesn't happen in English, but it happens in Spanish. So yo te veo, I see you. So literally, I-U-C, I-U-C, but don't think of it that way. Don't think of Spanish grammar. Don't do literal translations because it's gonna mess with you. Because it's gonna sound weird, it's gonna not make sense. Just try to think of the Spanish grammar, or just in Spanish. So just learn the patterns. Don't try not to do literal translations, just know what they mean. So yo te veo means I see you. but the pronoun has to come after the subject before the verb. Tú la ves. Tú la ves is you see her. You see, and la is her. You see her. Tú la ves. Ella me ve. She sees me. She sees me. Ella me ve. Me corresponds to me. So she sees me. Nosotros las vemos. Las could be you guys, all females, or it could be them, all females. But context usually gives away what you mean. If it doesn't, then you have to clarify. But for now, for our purposes, we just want to see the sentence pattern. So supposing that we understand, supposing it's clear who this person is talking about, this is just what they would say. Nosotros las vemos. Right? Okay. So this could be you guys plural, all females, or it could be them plural, all females. Ustedes los ven. Again, this could be you guys plural, all males, or mixed males and females, or it can be them, all males, or mixed males and females. Ustedes, you guys see them. That could be one translation. You guys see them. Ellos nos ven. They see us. They see us. Okay, so that's the pattern. The subject, the direct object pronoun, and then the verb. So that's the big switch from noun at the end, like English, to pronoun after the subject. This is different. Spanish is different in this way. Okay, that's sentence pattern number 4. Sentence pattern number 5. Subject, transitive verb, again, transitive verb, but now it's a specific person as a direct object, a specific person, right? So, and you'll see why it's important, because Spanish throws in this little a here for a specific person. Yo veo a Paola. Yo veo a Paola. Because Paola is a very specific person, we throw in the a. Yo veo a Paola. Tú ves a María. Tú ves a María. Right? Because Maria is a specific person you're picking out, you throw in the a. Ella ve al hombre. Al hombre. Al is actually a combination of the a that we use for a Paola, and el, which is the definite article, the. So if it's the man, it's a specific man. That's why it would be a el hombre, but we join a el together and just say al. So that's why al is here. But ella ve a el hombre, which we don't say. We just say al, because a él is kind of weird to put together, so we just say al. Okay, but it's the same grammar. This a is there. This a is the same a as we have for these other specific people. So, okay, so sentence subject number, pattern number 5 is when the transitive verb is a specific person, and you're going to need this a. This is the distinguishing thing about grammar, about Spanish grammar. We don't have this in English. We don't say, I see the Paola, or whatever. We don't throw anything before Paola. We don't throw anything before the name. Okay. Sentence pattern number 6. Oh, sorry. Before we go to number 6, we have to learn more grammar. We don't have to learn it. I'm just showing you so you know what's going on. Indirect object pronouns, right? The indirect object pronouns. In English, like we said, it's always the same thing for the direct object, indirect object, other object preposition. But these are different. Now look, again, corresponding to me in English is, again, me. So the direct object pronoun is me, and the indirect object pronoun is me. The direct object pronoun is te, and the indirect object pronoun is also te. So far, these two, indirect object and direct object, are the exact same for me and you. But remember, the direct object pronoun is lo, la. But here is just le. For all of these, for the him, for the her, and for the you polite, the usted. So it's just le, which is easier. It's just one, right? So when you think of the indirect, think of the E. The E is the prominent letter in the indirect objects. Me, te, le. Notice it's different, but the other one's les and les. So the E makes it different. Okay. For corresponding to us, right? Corresponding to us is nos. And that's easy because nosotros is we. So it's the nos part of the nosotros, right? And remember, in the direct object is also nos, right? So easy, easy. Okay. And then remember in this for the ustedes, for the you plural, and for the them, we don't have to worry about gender. It's just les. They're both les, right? Remember, the direct object pronoun was los and las, depending on the gender, los and las. But for the indirect, it's just les. Okay, so these are the indirect object pronouns. The me, the te, the nos are the same as the direct object. The only thing you have to change is change the the lo la to le, just easy because it's just the e and it's just one word, and you change the los las to les, which is easy because it's the e way and it's different from the other way, and it's just one word. You don't have to worry about gender. So if you learn the direct object pronouns, learning the indirect object pronouns will be nothing. Just practice a little bit, and you'll see the pattern, and you start to get used to it. Okay, so now why I introduced it, because this next sentence pattern introduces the indirect object pronoun. But notice where it goes. Subject, indirect object pronoun, transitive verb, and then direct object noun, not pronoun, noun after the verb. And then you can have an adverb if you want. Like, it's just common to have an adverb to complete the thought. Like, sometimes you don't need it, but I put it in because it's very common. Okay, so look, yo, subject. Indirect object pronoun, te. That's going to be to you or for you. Indirect object pronoun translates as to you or for you kind of idea, right? Cocino. Cocino is cook. So I cook for you. Pollo, which is chicken. So I cook chicken for you. This could be this right here alone is translated as I cook chicken for you, right? Literal it would be you cook chicken. You understood as the indirect object pronoun, so you can understand it as for you. But again, don't do literal translations. Just understand the meaning in English, and don't match grammar for grammar. Just match meaning for meaning, right? So if I say I cook chicken for you, and then in Spanish I would say yo te cocino pollo. Okay, so but this is the same. I'm meaning the same thing. Okay, and then here is the adverb or the adverbial, todos los sábados, which means every Saturday. Every Saturday. Todos los sábados, every Saturday. Okay. I'm not going to teach you the grammar of los sábados, like why is it los sábados, why not just sábados. Anyway, so that's it. That's the grammar, that's the sentence pattern. Another example. Tu, subject. Les, indirect object, and it can only be you guys or them. Tú les cocinas carne. Carne is like beef. Not like beef, it's beef. Sometimes carne de res, but we just shorten it to carne. So carne. Carne is beef. So you cook beef for them. Tú les cocinas carne every Sunday. You cook beef for them every Sunday, right? Again, the indirect object goes after the subject before the verb here. Last example of this pattern. Ella le cocina. Le is singular feminine. So she cooks her, some other her, not the ella her. It doesn't refer to ella, it refers to another female or another woman or another girl. She cooks her la cena. La cena is dinner. Again, I'm not going to explain why we say la cena. It's just dinner. Every day. She cooks her dinner every day. Ella le cocina la cena todos los días. Todos los días. Okay, that's the sentence pattern. So when you have an indirect object, we throw it after the subject before the verb. Okay, this is sentence pattern number 6. Now, object of the preposition, right? With him, you need the object of the preposition him. By her, you need the object of the preposition her. For us, maybe for is not the best example. About us, you're going to need the object of the preposition us. It's not, in English, it's the same object, so we don't have to think about it. We don't have to worry about it. But in Spanish, it's different. Now, let's look at the differences. Remember that the indirect object had the me, te, so did the direct object, me, te. The object of preposition has the I in Spanish, which is pronounced like E. So me corresponds to me in English as an object of the preposition. Ti corresponds to you in English as the object of the preposition. If it's just the direct object, it's not ti, it's te. If it's the indirect object, it's not ti, it's te. But if it's the object of the preposition, it's ti. And then the rest is easy. The rest are the subject pronouns. So the subject pronouns, él, ella, usted, nosotros or nosotras, ustedes, ellos, ellas, those are the subject pronouns. We use those exact same pronouns as object of the preposition pronouns. So you don't have to learn anything new if you already know the subject pronouns, which you should. Okay, so the only change you have to make is change the me and the me and the te to me and ti, and that's an easy change. You're like, oh, okay, object of the preposition requires me to use an I in the first two, in the first person singular and the second person singular instead of an E. Okay, that's it. All right, so let's continue. Again, this is not for you to memorize, it's just for you to understand when you see this in the grammar. 7, pattern number 7, subject, indirect object, pronoun, which we know goes after the subject, transitive verb, then direct object, noun, not pronoun. If it was a pronoun, it would go before the verb, but it's a noun, so it's going after the verb. Then, in Spanish, and unlike English, if you want to clarify who or what this pronoun refers to, because it might not be clear, you can use a prepositional phrase to make it clear. And so basically, you're going to have two words referring to the same thing, referring to the indirect object. Either you're doing it to clarify who you're talking about, or you're doing it to emphasize something. You're doing it for emphasis. Kind of like in English, we use the reflexive for emphasis, like I myself made this. Like I say I myself to emphasize that it was me, that it was I who did it, right? If I just want to say I did it, I would just say I made this. But and then like somebody could say, "Oh my God, it's amazing!" Like who helped you? I'm like, no, I myself made it, right? Just me, right? Okay. So the myself in English, the reflexive pronoun in English is used to emphasize. In Spanish, we can do this with a prepositional phrase, and so then we're going to need a prepositional object. So that's where in the prepositional case will come in here for us. Okay, so and then you can have an adverb to finish the thought. Yo, subject. Te, indirect object. So it's you. So it's to you or for you. Cocino pollo. So I cook you chicken. Pollo is chicken. I cook you dinner. And so now I can emphasize it by saying a ti. The a is like to, and then ti is you. So it's just it's unnecessary unless you are, and I put it in parentheses here because this one would be for emphasis, because this is not ambiguous. If I say yo te can only mean you. Te cannot mean anything else. Te can only mean you. So the only reason to add a ti is to add emphasis, right? Yo te cocino pollo a ti todos los días. You're just emphasizing that you're doing it for the person you're talking to. Okay. Sentence number 2. Tú les. Now, les, like I said, could be you guys or it could be them. So here you might want to clarify who you're talking about. Tú les cocinas carne a ellos. Not a ellas, not this group of girls, but these group of guys, right? Or not you guys, but these group of guys, right? So here the a ellos is clarifying who you're talking about when you say les. If you need to. If you don't need to, we don't put it in. But if you need to, right? Tú les cocinas carne a ellos todos los domingos. You cook beef for them every Sunday. Okay, so Another example of clarifying. Ella, she, lee, which is him or her, or it could be referring to usted, so we don't know. Cocina la cena, dinner. She cooks dinner, and then a María. Oh, that's who the ley is. Ley is María. So, ella le cocina la cena a María todos los días. So the a María clarifies who exactly you're referring to by le. A ellos clarifies who exactly you're talking about with les. And a ti, if you decide to put it in, would emphasize that it's for you, right? That it's being done for you, the person being spoken to. Okay. That is the clarifying or emphasizing prepositional phrase, but it's going to require the prepositional, the object of the preposition pronoun, which is ti, and then again, ellos, and Maria is just her name. Maria would be, doesn't have a pronoun, but Maria would be there too. Okay. Number 8. Now, oh, what's the difference? Oh, okay, okay. Here, we don't have, here we have a subject. We can put the clarifying phrase first and then the indirect object pronoun. Here we had the indirect object, and then after the verb, here's the verb, after the direct object noun, we put the clarifying phrase after. But we can also do it with here. We can put the clarifying phrase first and then still throw in the indirect object pronoun, right? Okay, and then the transitive verb. So we just move this from here to before in here. That's all we did. That's all we're doing. Yo a ti te cocino pollo todos los sábados. I, for you, cook chicken every Saturday, right? Okay, so the prepositional phrase clarifying who this te is referring to, or making it more emphatic. Tú a ellos les cocinas carne todos los días. So these are the same meaning. Tú les cocinas carne a ellos todos los domingos. Tú a ellos les cocinas carne todos los domingos. But it's different structure. We're throwing the clarifying phrase before the indirect object pronoun. Ella a María le cocina la cena todos los días. Again, we can throw in the prepositional phrase that emphasizes or clarifies the indirect object pronoun right before it. So this is a sentence structure, right? Okay, that we don't see in English, right? We wouldn't say in English, I for you, you, right? I for you, you. That doesn't work in English, right? So that's why I'm saying literal translations are not going to work. Don't do them. Don't do them. Just understand the pattern and understand what you're saying with the pattern. Yes, you're going to understand it kind of like in English, but don't match the grammar. Just understand the meaning, if that makes sense to you. Okay. And so before we get to sentence pattern number 9 here, because it's the 9 is kind of like you won't see 9 too much, but you might. So here's just a review. Let me shrink this so you can see the whole thing at once. Okay, this chart. Here are the English object pronouns. Object, and it's just one, right? We use them for indirect object, for direct object, and for object preposition. Me, you, him, her, us, you, them. You, this you is the plural you. Sometimes people say you guys, right? Or y'all. But okay, we understand, right? In Spanish, notice that there you have different, basically you have different patterns for each one. For the direct object, it's me, te, and then in the indirect object is also me, te. Very simple. This is very simple because they're the same, right? And the me is spelled the same as the me, but it's obviously pronounced differently. Okay. And then when you get to the indirect object, sorry, when you get to the object of preposition, you just change the e to the I. So it's me, ti. This is not problem. This is not a problem. Me, te, mi, ti. Then when you get to the him or her for the direct object, it's lo and la, lo and la. And then the indirect, it's le, right? It's the le. The indirect object, the e is the sign basically of the indirect object. Okay. And then in the object of preposition is easy. We just use the subject pronouns, or even just the noun. Like if it's a person's name, we just use the noun. So it's él, ella, and usted, because usted conjugates in the third person singular, right? It conjugates the same way as él and ella. It's the you polite. Okay, then when we get to the plurals, the nos is easy because us, we is nosotros. So it's just the first three letters is nosotros is nos. And the same thing, matching, 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 matching. And here, again, we have no problems over here because it's just a subject. So we don't have to worry about this. Whatever the subject pronoun is, that's what we're going to use for the object preposition. And then here, we know, if you remember lo and la, well, we make things plural in Spanish the same way we make things plural in English. We just add an S. So los and las. And because we know that these two patterns are always the same in like South American Spanish, it's going to be los and las for them too, right? And the same thing here, it's les and les. So the patterns aren't, there's not a lot of variance, and there's a lot of like similarities that's going to help you remember. Like if once you remember one, I think the rest are easy to like remember. Okay, now let's go to the last one, which you might see. Subject. Clarifying prepositional phrase or emphasizing prepositional followed by the indirect object pronoun. Now followed by the direct object pronoun. If it's not a pronoun, it's going to, if it's a noun and not a pronoun, it'll come after the verb. But because it's a pronoun, it's going to go before the verb, immediately before the verb. So this is the order. Clarifying or emphasizing prepositional phrase, and it clarifies or emphasizes the indirect object pronoun. And then if you have a direct pronoun, object pronoun, it goes next. And then your transitive verb, and then maybe an adverb to finish the thought. Okay, let me, I don't want to, I always spell hot dogs as one word. I'm going to leave it. Yo, subject. A ti, prepositional phrase, emphasizing that it's you, indirect object, te. Los, direct object. So either them or you guys in the masculine. Cocino, cook. So I, for you, sorry, los is not them. Los is hot dogs here, right? Hot dogs is los, because los would be a third person plural, right? Them, right? But you're cooking, what are you cooking? You're cooking hot dogs. So that's why the los is referring to the hot dog. So I, for you, emphasis with the ati, emphasizing that it's for you, cook hot dogs, cook them every Saturday. So in the context that we're talking about hot dogs, and you're like, you never make me hot dogs. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yo a ti te los cocino todos los sábados. I cook them for you every Saturday. What do you mean I never make you hot dogs, right? So this is the los referring to hot dogs here, which is them, would be a them, right? So it would be, okay, I cook them for you, right? So, okay, so this is it. So this is the pattern. Next pattern. Tú, you, a ellos, clarifying the indirect object les. So les refers to them. You cook them hot dogs. Los is the hot dogs. Los, you cook them, referring to hot dogs, but we wouldn't talk that way. We would just say hot dogs. Cocinas todos los domingos. So you, clarifying prepositional phrase for them, indirect object, them. Los referring to hot dogs, understood already. And then cocinas todos los días. Okay, last example. Ella, a María, clarifying prepositional phrase, referring to the indirect object, le, which is referring to Maria. Ella, a María, le los cocina. Los, again, hot dogs. Cocina, she cooks Maria hot dogs every day. She cooks Maria hot dogs every day. But in Spanish, we have this thing where we can basically have, you don't have two indirect objects, but you have two pronouns or referring to the same thing, right? And here, this is a pronoun. Ti is a pronoun. Te is a pronoun. They're both referring to you. Here, ellos is a pronoun and les is a pronoun. One is a prepositional. One is the object of the preposition pronoun, ellos. The other one is the indirect object pronoun, but they're both referring to the same people, them. And so obviously English doesn't do that. English doesn't say them, you. And here, Maria, we could throw in Maria's name, and le is referring to Maria. So both of these are referring to Maria. Okay, so this is different about Spanish. And we wouldn't usually say this, but you can. The more common one is this one for the emphasis. Yo a ti te cocino, yo a ti te los cocino todos los días. That's kind of common. Okay, not super common, but it's like normal. But to say les los is not wrong. It's just it doesn't come up much. Tú a ellos les cocinas, and then we would probably just say hot dogs, like hot dogs. I don't know, hot dogs. Tú a ellos les cocinas hot dogs. And because it's a noun, we would put it after the verb. We wouldn't put it. But you can say it like this, and that's the grammar. Okay, that's it. So those are 9 sentence patterns incorporating indirect object pronouns, incorporating direct object pronouns, incorporating prepositional phrases, which of course have an object of the preposition in them. Yeah, and so this is like, these are pretty elementary sentence patterns, very common, very useful sentence patterns. Okay, I used a little bit of grammar jargon, but I don't think it's anything like overly over anybody's head. If you don't know what an object of a preposition is, yeah, so it's the noun or pronoun that goes with the preposition. Like prepositions like in, on, with, for, during, about, right? And some object or pronoun goes with it. So on the table, table is the object of the preposition, on is the preposition, right? Okay, so and direct object receives the action of the verb directly. The indirect object in English always goes before the direct object in English. The indirect object in English always goes before the direct object in English, right? Okay. Anyway, so that's it. I hope this is helpful. I will put up more sentence patterns, and they're going to start to get a little bit more complicated, more complex, and incorporate slightly new grammar. This is not intended for you beginners. So if you're like, this is too fast, this is too advanced, yes, you are correct. Okay. All right. That's it. Later. Let me sign off. And let me sign off now. Bye. Click again.